Thank you, everybody, for joining our Sail to Success webinar series. Today's session, we're covering best practices for setting up your knowledge base using the new GenAI platform on DigitalOcean. We've got some great speakers, so I'm really excited for you guys to hear from them. We have Anastasia joining us from DigitalOcean, who's a senior product manager and covers the GenAI platform. And then we also have Anuj joining us from Vijil, who's a machine learning engineer. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Anastasia to take you guys through the agenda for today.
Yeah, so let's talk about today's agenda. Well, first of all, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this deep dive into knowledge bases in our GenAI platform. So on our today's agenda, I'm going to go shortly about the GenAI platform, give you the overview, talk you through the knowledge bases, what they are, what they for, and then I will give the word to Anush to cover the best practices, customer example, and then in the end we will touch upon our future releases and roadmap, and we'll try to answer all your questions. So let's now move to the GenAI platform. So as you can see, like from this slide, the GenAI platform, I would say, is a truly all-in-one solution that designs to simplify the overall creation and customization and deployment of AI agents. And I say that what makes our platform really special is that it enables you easily to integrate GenAI capabilities into your applications without requiring you to know or to have any deep machine learning expertise, for example. So I'm going to walk you now um, through some features that we have that have our platform. So first of all, we definitely have like agent playground and pre-trained AI models as a core of our platform. On agent playground, we have really intuitive environment where you can just experiment with the design, with the agent itself. You can try different prompt strategies, and also you can test your agent before going into deployment, so you can be sure how it works, how it looks, and how it behaves. This is, I would say, really valuable for the developers who probably are just getting started with the GenAI. So also we offer agent routing capabilities that will allow you to create a system where you have a multiple specialized agents that are working together with this kind of like a router agent that's going to direct queries to the most appropriate agent specialized in the content that you created, like in this request exactly. So we also offer guardrails so that you can ensure that your agent can go to production. In our guardrails, we offer right now content moderation, jailbreak detection, and also protection from the exposure of the PII or any kind of like sensitive information. You can read more in our document section here. And also some more powerful features such as function routing that enables your agents basically to take specific actions based on user requirements, like querying databases or triggering some external services. And probably also the most important one, right, is the knowledge bases feature, or RAG, which stands like for Retrieval Augmented Generation. It allows your agent to access and reference your data, making them, like kind of true subject matter experts in the domain that you want them to be. So talking about the knowledge bases, on the next slide. Yeah, thank you. So on the next slide, I just wanted to share a little bit information about what are the knowledge bases, basically, as I said, right? This is some files you upload to your agents, be the subject matter experts, and we offer different types of those. You can just use your existing data in space buckets, for example, or you can import your data from your local setup. And also recently we're launched web scraping. This is a really powerful tool, and we can see that people use it a lot. And you can store your data whenever you need it, like because we have open source databases that's available in all regions. And from here, I will give the word to Anush to cover more stuff on the knowledge bases.
Thanks, Anastasia. Appreciate it. Hi, everyone. My name is Anuj. I'm an MLE at Vijil. Vijil is actually a DO Hatch startup, and we focus on developing agents that are reliable, safe, and secure. We primarily work on testing and auditing AI agents, protecting them, and then, if required, operation and maintenance and optimization of agents. And we've been early adopters of the GenAI platform and working with companies who have been very early adopters of the GenAI platform to help build their agents out and get them to production. And today we'll be talking about how to best make use of your knowledge bases and the things we've learned working with customers to just get the most out of your knowledge bases. This is a brief overview of what I'm going to be talking about here. And we primarily start with how you can actually decide when you should be using a knowledge base, because not every use case is going to demand one. What kind of data you should be using in the knowledge base, how you can index the data, how your knowledge base can actually improve your user experience by displaying information, giving you citations, things of that nature. I'll talk a bit about the different parameters you can tweak and how you can change things with the retrieval method to improve the accuracy of the results. Another really, really powerful feature that launched very recently is the fact that you can now customize your agents to fit different users using what we call knowledge-based filtering. And the last thing I touch upon is how you can test your agents to make sure that they're reliable, safe, and secure, and you can get them out into production more efficiently. So to start with, I want to highlight that knowledge bases are really great for unstructured text-based data, right? If you've got documents, if you've got web pages, PDFs, things of that sort, knowledge bases are great. You can imagine that a knowledge base would be a suitable candidate for when you want to just answer free-form text questions. If you as a human would want to read some documents and find an answer in that document to answer some kind of question, that's the kind of candidate that you want for a knowledge base. If you've got structured data, we would recommend that you use a function call instead. And we don't cover function calls in this webinar, but there's tons of great resources on the DO documentation for this. The reason being that the way that knowledge bases work is when you put in a query or a statement, your RAG pipeline is going to look at the similarity of the query to the similarity of the documents that you have in your database. And it picks out candidate paragraphs or chunks of data in the database that are related to this query. Now, if you had a query like, oh, what are the best-selling items in my product catalog that are under $50? You can't reliably answer that with a knowledge base because the knowledge base won't do the underlying math that actually checks whether or not the objects in the knowledge base have a price that's under $50. And so as a brief rule of thumb, if you're searching over text, use a knowledge base. If you're searching over objects, consider using functions. And there's nothing that stops you from just combining both and using both together. To index your data, what we would recommend is you can usually use text files, PDFs, markdowns, even HTML pages just straight out the gate. But if you really, really care about accuracy, TXT files are generally indexed the most accurately, and this is just because of the fact that there's no extra metadata. So there's nothing in the file that could contribute any kind of noise, which means that the indexing performance is just better. However, for most users, I'd say that this really isn't going to be a problem. It's only if you have some very specific PDFs or some kind of messy HTML files where you may want to consider scraping out the text information and then using that instead. When it comes to the indexing model itself, we just recommend using the default one provided by DO. Our testing indicates that for most users, this will give you the most accurate and reliable results. And so we just recommend that you go with it. Something really cool, though, that you can do is to actually format the data that you put into your knowledge base so that you can use that formatting later. So for example, this is actually some work that we did with another customer. If you were to put in markdown information about your images, say on your documentation page or your FAQ page, you can then get your agent to just render out the markdown for the images that are in your data. And so this means that when you chat with your agent can show you images that are there in documentation or maybe some other kind of reference that then are displayed to the user. So you don't have to integrate any other mechanisms to pull in things like images. And this works with all kinds of markdown data. So it's very powerful. Just keep in mind, though, that you should be using a fully qualified URL and things of that nature so that you can render it out properly. But this is just to say that the data that goes into your knowledge base can actually affect the user experience, because the way it goes in is how it can come out as well. And so do make use of that feature if you're building something that is very interactive, very user-facing. Another thing that you can do is actually get your knowledge base to give you citations. So, for example, if you're working with some kind of research assistant, it's important to know what paper a particular data point or a particular extract comes from. You could use it for, say, debugging something. If you've got logs, you may want to know which log file some kind of data came from. And so you can just ask your agent to cite its sources, and your agent will show you what files it came from. Now, the citation also contains some indexing times as well. So to make it more user-friendly, we recommend asking the agent just to cite file names. That's the easiest way to get that information across. And these citations will not contain page numbers. This is because of how the indexing works. The indexing takes large files, cuts them into smaller pieces. So it can be hard to keep track of the page numbers that the actual citation came from, if the concept of page numbers even exists. But if you ask your agent to give you page numbers, there is a good chance that it might just hallucinate. So we recommend asking for citations for only aspects that you can guarantee, which is primarily just the file name. Also, if you require citations, don't upload your documents directly to the spaces. Just don't upload your documents directly to the knowledge base. Put them in a spaces bucket first, and then index them afterwards. And the reason this is important is because if you just upload the file directly, the backend has to give it a unique file identifier. And so when it shows you the citation, that citation may not make sense to you because you don't necessarily understand what the file name is. But behind the scenes, it makes sense to the agent because that's what the file name is under the hood. But if you need a specific file name to show up, make sure you put it in the spaces bucket and then you index that entire spaces bucket. There are two parameters that you can primarily adjust with your knowledge base. The first is the K value and the second is the retrieval method. Now, the K value will control the number of documents your agent receives when creating responses. So like I said earlier, when you submit a query to the agent will then send that query to the knowledge base, and then it will find documents that are related to the query. K basically controls the number of those documents that get pulled out. Your agent will then look at those documents and then construct a response that matches your query and also takes in the data that these documents have. Now, you can control K from 0 to 10. We would recommend leaving K at 10, the highest value, because the models that are available are actually very good at determining if information isn't relevant. A lower value may result in missing information in your responses. So it's just better, in our opinion, to leave it at a high value so that you get as much relevant information as you can. You don't really run the risk of having incorrect information if K is too high. You run the risk of having information that's missing if K is too low. The second one is the retrieval method, and this is a brand new feature. And this allows your knowledge base to actually modify the user query for better search performance. And I'll go over the different retrieval methods here because they're pretty interesting. So the way it works is that by default, the retrieval method is set to none. And this doesn't change the query in any way. So for example, if you ask, what are the impacts of climate change on the environment? That query will just be used as is, no changes. The second method is called query rewriting. And what this does is it actually takes the query and augments it. It makes it way more specific in detail, and that improves the likelihood that you actually get relevant information out of your knowledge base. So that same query, what are the impacts of climate change on the environment? It'll be transformed to something like, what are the specific effects of climate change on various ecosystems, including changes in temperature, precipitation patterns, sea levels, and biodiversity. And by creating this more detailed and specific query, there are a lot more search hits that you get from the knowledge base, and it makes your answer a lot more rich. The second method is called step back, and this sort of does the opposite thing. It generates a broader and more generic query that can usually help you retrieve relevant background information or give you more broad general information. So our question of what are the impacts of climate change on the environment will now become what are the general effects of climate change. The third one is called subquery decomposition. And what this does is take one query and convert it into multiple queries. And this gives you far more comprehensive information retrieval because you've taken a simple query and made it into a bunch of smaller queries that are more specific in nature. So for example, here, what are the impacts of climate change will become something along the lines of how does climate affect biodiversity and ecosystems, impacts of climate change on oceanic conditions and marine life, et cetera, et cetera. And this is all done automatically for you through the use of another LLM. And the method you pick will depend on your use case. Typically, step back is useful for agents whose job is to analyze or summarize multiple documents. For example, let's say you have a bunch of call logs and you're running a customer support service, and you want to figure out what's going on with customer support, how is the user experience, are your customers happy? You can use step-back step-back retrieval in order to get an aggregated assessment of how people are performing, how the different customers are reacting by looking at all your documents as a whole. Query rewriting is really useful for when you have a customer-facing agent, something that you expect to interact with your users directly, because users don't like to necessarily provide very detailed or well-formatted queries, right? But they do expect detailed and extensive answers. And this helps bridge the gap because now the agent can sort of infer a more detailed version of the question and give the user back a more detailed response, even if they ask a very short and basic question. And lastly, subquery decomposition is very useful for agents that regularly handle complex queries or need to answer very, very detailed or respond back in a very detailed manner. So for most agents, we recommend you at least try out query rewriting and subquery decomposition and testing it out to see if you can find significant performance improvements. For most folks, query rewriting actually provides solid benefits, so we definitely recommend that you check it out if you haven't checked it out already. The next feature that I want to go into is, it may look kind of boring, but I promise you this is very, very exciting. The agent's API supports knowledge-based filtering. And hopefully you can see the little code snippet there, and I apologize for including code in something like this. But unfortunately, this is still only available in the API. But if you see the extra body section of that response that we sent to the OpenAI client here, we're sending a request to an agent. And in that request to the agent, we're actually specifying a filter to the knowledge base. And this is just a prefix path to a particular folder or a particular document inside the knowledge base. And the reason that this is cool is because the agent will restrict its search and its response generation to only use the documents in that particular path. Now, the reason that this is super powerful is because it means that you can customize your agents to your user data. So with KB filtering, you can have a single agent, but you can produce results that are tailored to the user interacting with it. So let's say, for example, you have a help desk setup or a QA agent where you want to have different documents associated with particular activities associated with a specific team, right? Depending on what kind of stuff the team is doing, there's a different set of FAQ questions, there's a different set of procedures or operating protocols that they need to follow. And you want a way to have maybe one agent, but ensure that depending on what team the user belongs to, the things they are told, their operating guidelines are specific to that user. Using KB filtering, all you have to do is create a different folder for each team, put in the documents you need there, and then in your request, just send the corresponding path to that folder, and immediately you get a response back that is tailored to that user's requirements. Another one could basically be an agent that needs to respond back, maybe with technical documentation that's designed to be in a specific language. Now, depending on the user's language, you can decide whether or not you should be showing English documentation, French documentation, or Spanish documentation. If you have something like an educational setup where you want to create a personalized tutoring experience for every student, all you have to do is create a new folder for the student, put their documents in there, and immediately you can now create this agent and have it, you can use an existing agent and have it be tailored towards this new student's particular needs. And that's really what I want to highlight, that you still have just one deployed agent. You still have just one deployed knowledge base, but you can still customize the agent to fit multiple users without having to deploy any more resources. So it lets you scale up and meet different user needs without needing to do any extra deployments or incur a lot of extra costs, which is really powerful. The last thing I really want to stress on is that your agent is still software, so please, please, please make sure you test it. There are 3 broad levels of testing that we recommend doing, depending on sort of what level of production you're in and how big your team is. And like Anastasia pointed out earlier, the playground is a great way to just do a quick vibe check, right? You just try out common queries, rapidly iterate, see whether or not your agent is giving you the responses you need. You can play with your knowledge base settings here. You can tweak the data that you've put in. and you can really quickly iterate to get something that seems good. We really do recommend creating a manual data set and then using the API to just do a rich and thorough testing with your domain-specific knowledge to ensure that your agent covers all your use cases. Because it's really important to get a feel of how your agent will respond, not just to the good queries, but also the bad queries and the complex queries that you may expect users to answer. And so we know it's really hard to create this kind of manual data set. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. But we do recommend at least putting that on your roadmap and trying to make sure you achieve that. That said, there are external tools you can use to sort of create a large data set that you can evaluate with. At Vijil, we have a tool called Vijil Evaluate that will let you create customized tests for your agent, and you can use that to guarantee reliability, safety, and security. These tests are typically designed with your data and your policy requirements in mind, so we can automatically construct them for you. There are other open source tools like AutoRag and Rados that you can use to do similar things. So we recommend checking at least one of them out. I want to also talk about actually, before I continue that, I do also want to mention that this feature here is actually the byproduct of a collaboration that we have with another company called Rainforest along with DigitalOcean. So we were working alongside them. They told us that they needed something like this. So we worked with the DO team and they were able to deliver it for us. So I just wanted to highlight that there is this great community involvement here. If you're interested in working with any of this stuff and you find that there are missing features that you need, feel free to reach out to us and we'll see how best we can support you. I just want to talk about a great customer that we work with called Autonoma. Autonoma is an IoT company based out of Austria. And they were one of the early adopters of the GenAI platform. And this was like way back when the GenAI platform just sort of started out. They decided to start using it, and we worked alongside them to help build out an agent that they could get to production. And when they started, they had some trouble with hallucinations, inaccurate content retrieval, and some unsafe behaviors where their agent was saying things that were not suitable at all by any stretch of the imagination. And so what we ended up doing was we actually created an organized knowledge base for them. So we scraped their online help center in all the languages they had available. We extracted the plain text. We created metadata so that we could do the kind of structured retrieval that we showed you earlier, so that the agent would display images and tutorials right in the UI. And we separated the language-specific content to improve the response accuracy. And all this stuff now is actually part and parcel of the DO platform. Right? We've got web scraping as part of the DO platform that you can just do. We don't have to do it manually anymore. And so you can see that a lot of these features have been taken into production and then made into part of the DO platform itself. In addition to that, we have improved their context retrieval by enhancing the data structuring so that they could ground their answers better. They could get guarantees that the answers generated by that agent were consistent and correct. And the last thing that we did was actually significantly improve the safety and security of that agent. When they started working with DO, guardrails weren't a thing yet on the platform, but we were able to enhance the resilience of the agent to prompt injection and jailbreaks. And then once guardrails were in, we could add that in as well. So with that, Anastasia, I'll take it back to you. If any of you have any questions about the platform or agent-specific stuff, feel free to ask in the chat. Also, feel free to reach out to us at contact@vijil.ai or just check us out online if you have any questions.
Yeah, so thank you very much for the discussion. That was really interesting. I think that right now I will just spot a little light on our upcoming features. So let's just look at what's coming in the near future. And as I mentioned before, we just launched web crawling for knowledge bases. And I would say this is like an absolutely magnificent feature that allows you easily integrate all the web data that you want to use for your AI agents to make them smarter, right? And you don't have to enter any data manually. So for example, you want to create an AI agent that's really specific for some kind of website, for probably items catalog or some numbers, for example, on financial markets. So you can do the web crawling here, which is really useful when you want to index, like, the current data. And also, coming this week, I'm super excited to announce that we are finally launching, like, supporting OpenAI models. this integration basically will allow you to leverage OpenAI models for enhanced AI capabilities, expanding just the range of the foundation models that you can build upon. So there we will support like 4.0, 4.0 mini, O1, and O3 mini models. And also, uh, you asked, we listened. Will be releasing like in a matter of days. I would even say two major features, which are agent versioning and agent insights, because we've heard that a lot of customers are trying to go into production and they want to track more what the agent like doing, and they want to be more in control of the agent versioning. So now you will be able to track and manage like different versions of your agent, and this is really crucial as we understand. And in agent insights, it will just provide deeper analytics on your agent AI performance, which is also important for the production use cases. And I also would say that if you are a heavy Gen AI user of like our platform, or you're just only starting, like, do not hesitate to reach us on any social media platforms, or just drop a support ticket, because we do look close at them and we listen to what you're saying about our product, and we'll be really happy to drop more features in upcoming quarter.